Hello, my name is Amanda, and today I'm going to be doing my October wrap-up, aka all the books that I read in October. So I had a pretty good reading month. I finished 6 books. Some of those I had started before and I just finished in October. I'm still going to tell you about them. And I had a lot of spooky books for October, which was really exciting. I always love to read spooky books in October for Halloween. The first book that I finished in October was The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And I actually started this back in August, but it took me 2 months to read. To be fair, I was in France for a little bit of that time, but I don't get the hype around this book. Like, everyone and their mother is obsessed with this, and I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. So if you haven't heard of this, it's about a teenager named Avery who inherits billions of dollars from this random man that she's never heard of named Tobias Hawthorne. But the only condition is that she has to live in the Hawthorne mansion, which he also left to her, for at least a year. But the Hawthorne family is still living there as well. So now she's living with this family that hates her because they were basically disinherited and she got all the money. So it's a big Knives Out situation. And the Hawthorne mansion has a bunch of secret passageways and riddles. And she is trying to solve this mystery of why this random man left her money, along with the Hawthorne boys, which there are 4 brothers. And there's also a bit of romance. But I just found this so boring. Like, it was slow, even though it was supposed to be a mystery and like suspenseful. It is YA, but I found it to be pretty cringy. But I had to stick with it because the whole reason I actually read this book was because I was annotating it for my roommate's birthday. So last year I annotated a book for her this summer, Broken Rules, and then I just decided that it should be this annual tradition for her birthday. Her birthday was in August, but again, it took me 2 months to finish this, so I was like, happy late birthday, here's a book. And when I say annotate, I just mean that I put all my reactions, I write down all my reactions in the margins. I don't actually like annotate it like in an academic sense of like literary devices or any of that. But she thinks it's really fun. I think it's really fun. It's like she's reading it along with me in a way. But if I wasn't annotating it for her, I don't know if I would have finished it. And I might continue the series, but I honestly don't really care. And if I do continue the series, it will just be through audiobook. The next book that I finished in October was Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This also has been getting so much hype, and I get it. I actually liked this one, which is shocking because usually I hate books that everyone else loves. So I couldn't believe it when I actually also loved this book. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5. If you somehow don't know what this one is about, it's about this 21-year-old girl, Violet, who lives in this empire that has like different quadrants, kind of like how in Divergent they have different factions, if you've read that. This is different quadrants. She grew up in the scribe quadrant, which is, very scholarly, like erudite, but her mom is making her go into the writers quadrant, which trains young adults to become dragon riders. But there's like all these challenges and this danger, so people just die like all the time. I thought it was super fast paced. There was a romance in it and it was really spicy, but I really was rooting for them. I loved it so much. And I listened to this one on an audiobook and I love the narrator. I just thought she did such a good job. I don't know why people are saying that it's like Harry Potter, because Harry Potter is technically a children's book and this is like definitely R-rated. And if anything, it reminds me more of Divergent, like I said, and also An Ember in the Ashes. So if you've read that one, I think you'll like this. The main character is also the child of like one of the big leaders of the school, and it's like a school where you have to go through these challenges where you could die. Was there a war in A Number in the Ashes? I don't know, but their empire is like warring with a neighboring empire. But yeah, I would highly recommend this, and I cannot wait to read the second one. Next, we have All Our Hidden Gifts by Caroline O'Donoghue. This is a book that my friend Delaney and I found at Barnes & Noble one time, and we had never heard of it, but it is so beautiful, and it has these illustrations in it that we thought were so cool. And we love books that just like have, you know, illustrations or like added little fun things that you don't usually find in novels. So she just bought it because she has a book buying problem. That was good for me because then I could read it for October because, you know, it's very magical. And I actually really enjoyed this one too, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. This is about a high schooler named Maeve who finds a tarot deck in her school. It's a sporting school for girls in Ireland, and I actually don't think I've ever read a book set in Ireland, so that was kind of fun. I also listened to the audiobook. Of course, I always went back to the physical copy to look at the illustrations, but I liked the Irish narrator. So she starts giving tarot readings to her classmates until one of them goes wrong, and I'm not going to spoil it. That's all I'll say. It also had some romance in it. It addressed some serious topics like gender identity and violence against the LGBTQIA plus community. And it also just felt like so current, like I made references to pop culture that I actually got, like Matilda and like Friends and stuff. And it incorporated like texting, technology. So yeah. So it felt like, you know, someone of my generation was writing this. And I liked that it was like realistic, even though there was like this whole element of magic in it. I just thought this one was a lot of fun, and I would definitely recommend this one as well. But then I read the second book. Oh, let me get that one. But then I read the second one, The Gifts That Bind Us. And this also has a bunch of illustrations in it. But I ended up only giving this one a 2.5 out of 5. I felt like this should not have been a trilogy, and we could have just had the first book. I felt like it wrapped itself up pretty nicely. It did leave itself open, but like it could have easily not left itself open to a sequel. And this one just felt like a repeat of the first book, like the same formula, but like a slightly different plot points. So I don't think I will be continuing with the third book in the trilogy, unfortunately. Next, I read Carrie by Stephen King. I unfortunately left this at my dad's house by accident. I'm sure you've heard of Carrie by Stephen King, or seen the movie. I did enjoy this one. I gave it a 3.75 out of 5. If somehow you haven't heard of this one, it's about this girl named Carrie, and she's been bullied her whole life, and she starts to display these really strong signs of telekinetic abilities. I'm sure you know how it ends, but I just won't say just in case you don't want to know. I read this one with my friend Delaney, and it was a very good Halloween read. I don't get scared easily, so I didn't think it was scary, but I will say that it was emotionally taxing. Just like reading about the abuse that Carrie has to endure from her mom was actually just like really heartbreaking. It's one of Stephen King's older novels, so it had like a lot of weird references or like phrases. I don't even know if they were references, but just these phrases and sayings that made no sense to me, and I was like, what does he mean? Like, can he stop saying weird things? That was a little annoying. And then also I felt like I'm not an action person, so I hate like action movies or like action scenes. So the climax of the book just like kind of dragged on for me. But other than that, I was pretty entertained the whole way through. It was a pretty short book. Last year I read The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson, which is a retelling of Carrie, but it introduces a racial aspect. So the main character is black, and she has been white passing for her whole life. Even though Carrie was the original and The Weight of Blood is a retelling, I preferred The Weight of Blood a lot more. I felt that the racial aspect gave it a lot more meaning, and I just preferred the writing style probably because it is more modern and contemporary. And I feel like in a way, reading Carrie was more entertaining because I was reading the original that The Weight of Blood was based on. Like, it was fun for me to see like what choices Tiffany D. Jackson made to keep the same or like change from Carrie to her book. That kind of added some entertainment value to reading Carrie that wouldn't have been there necessarily if I hadn't read The Weight of Blood first. I feel like I would recommend it only to read The Weight of Blood, honestly. And the last book I read, I technically finished today, and it is November 1st. Technically, I didn't finish this one in October, but I'm still gonna include it because I only read like the last 50 pages today, and it was still intended for a spooky October TBR, and that is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This is my first Agatha Christie novel. My close friend Sanjana, this is like one of her favorite books of all time. And I borrowed this from my coworker, and he also highly recommends it. I think my expectations were a little too high. I did enjoy it. I gave it a 4 out of 5. This is about 10 people. They all get letters from like different people from their past that are inviting them to this island. And then they show up and they realize that none of the people that invited them are there, and just something is off about this situation. In the beginning, it's really hard to keep all the characters straight because there are 10 of them immediately, so I would recommend writing them down, which is what I did. The thing is, the entire plot is told to you in chapter 2, so like you literally have to read like 250 pages when you literally already know what's going to happen. You just don't necessarily know like how, but I was still on the edge of my seat because of my friend saying that the ending was just so good. So I was expecting like this huge twist. I don't know, I was satisfied with the ending, but I didn't think it was mind-blowing or necessarily better than twists in other murder mysteries that I've read. So I don't really get like why this might be like someone's favorite book, or like why it's praised so much higher than other murder mysteries. But it was easy enough to read. I was actually surprised because I thought I wasn't going to like the writing style since it was published in the 1930s, but I found it easy enough to read and entertaining, and I got through it pretty quickly. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it. I felt like as a reader I had to try at least one Agatha Christie. Read it if you want to. If you don't, I don't necessarily think you're missing out that much. Those were the 6 books that I read in October. I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below your favorite book that you read in October, and I'll see you next time.